Erik Ten Hag has officially begun his Manchester United tenure, and so begins the rebuild of the club. And, well, it's going to take some rebuild, isn't it? Today, I'm going to become Erik Ten Hag, and I'm going to conduct what I believe is a realistic rebuild of Manchester United in FM22. Let's do it. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Clayts. Subscribe if you are new, because we're trying to hit 20k. Today, we are going to be doing a realistic rebuild at Manchester United as if we're Erik Ten Hag, because we've started a save look where it is the end of the season. I've done an up-to-date database, and we're going to be going from the point where Manchester United have finished 6th. They're going to go into this summer window now with a new manager in charge, with loads of money to go and spend, with loads of players leaving the club. It's a truly fascinating window for Manchester United, and we're going to go and try and do it in FM22, but trying to do it realistically. I'm looking forward to this. Let's jump into it. First things first, outgoings. We already know that there's a mass exodus going on at Manchester United this summer. It's already began with players confirming that they will be leaving at the end of their contracts. We've got Paul Pogba and Juan Mata, Edinson Cavani, Jesse Lingard, all out of contract in the summer. We've even seen Ralf Rangnick leave the club now, and he won't be taking up that consultancy role. So in-game then, let's start with the players that we know for sure are leaving the club this summer. We can begin with the players that are running out of contract. At the end of June, these players will see their contract run out and they will be leaving Manchester United. Most of them have all but confirmed it, and I think we're pretty sure that they're going to be leaving at this stage. Maybe some of them will be given a chance to impress the new manager. Players like Tahith Chong, maybe he'll get a chance. I'm not quite so sure though. We'll start off with a big one. It's Paul Pogba, who will be leaving at the end of his contract, freeing up £300,000 per week in wages. That could be so crucial for bringing new players in. It will definitely be crucial for me to bring new players in this realistic rebuild. He will be leaving. Edinson Cavani just behind him, also on massive wages, £250,000 per week being freed up when he leaves the club. We've also got Juan Mata. We've also got Jesse Lingard leaving the club, as he's pretty much confirmed on his socials. Alongside those two, we've also got Nemanja Matic, who will be leaving on a free contract, even though on the FM he's got an extra year till 2023. It was actually an additional year that he's decided not to take up. He will be leaving on a free as well. In fact, what I need to do is offer him out for free and transfer list him too. Let's see if we can get anybody to take him. And then for these guys here, I'm going to select them all and set them all for release, and they will be leaving. Those players out on a free, that's without even thinking about some players that have confirmed they'll be leaving on in terms of an actual transfer deal as well. Let's move through to those ones next. I think we can quite safely add these players to the list as well. Dean Henderson, Phil Jones, Eric Bailly, and Anthony Martial. Those ones I think are almost certain to leave the club this summer. Dean Henderson, maybe he'll get a chance to impress, but I just think after being on the bench all of last season, he's going to want to go and play first team football next summer. I don't think he's going to get that first team football here with Erik Ten Hag. I think he'll go with David De Gea for another year. He's so important to this Manchester United team. I think he's just about good enough in the ways that Erik Ten Hag wants him to be in terms of a goalkeeper. I think he'll be his number one, and therefore Dean Henderson will probably be sold this summer. Whilst his value is fairly high, he doesn't want another year on the bench. Alongside him, we've got two players who have actually confirmed that they are going to be leaving this year. Phil Jones and Eric Bailly, two centre-backs. Does that mean that we're going to need to bring in a centre-back? I think it almost certainly does, doesn't it? Two players there leaving from centre-back. Eric Bailly is on decent wages as well, £85,000 per week. Phil Jones is on £110,000 per week too. So those two are definitely on their way out. And the final one for me, Anthony Martial, I think he's likely to leave too. He's on massive wages, and it just hasn't really worked for him at Manchester United, has it? Maybe he'll get a chance to impress Erik Ten Hag when he comes back from his loan spell, but to me, I think he'll probably be leaving permanently this summer. He is on £250,000 per week too, of course. Did spend his last season out with Sevilla. So with these players, I'm going to offer them out for transfer and see if we do get any bids in for them. So we've just talked about a load of players leaving the club. That means they are going to need to be replaced in this squad. Let's have a think about who we might bring in. But before we do that, let's think about the system, the approach that Erik Ten Hag might go with when he comes in at Manchester United. So here you can see the type of approach, the type of tactic that I think Erik Ten Hag might employ at Manchester United. Of course, it's very heavily influenced by his Ajax system that was so successful for so many years for him there. It's maybe subject to change when he comes in and realizes what the squad is like, maybe in terms of which players he's able to bring in through the door as well. But we're going to use it as a bit of a blueprint, as a bit of a template to see where are Manchester United strong, where do they fit with maybe some of Erik Ten Hag's ideas, and where maybe does he need to go into that transfer market to improve things. We're going to go through player by player, position by position, and then that will inform us when we go into that transfer market. I think the first position of goalkeeper is a fairly routine decision for Erik Ten Hag for next year. I think David De Gea is going to be the #1 goalkeeper for Manchester United next season. As I mentioned before, maybe Dean Henderson might want to stay and fight for his place, but to be honest, I can see him leaving the club in the summer, and I've seen some reports saying that Manchester United are already looking for backup goalkeeper options. So we'll start with David De Gea as the goalkeeper. He's going to play as this sweeper keeper in this possession-based system. I think he's got all the skills necessary to be able to do that to at least a level that is going to see them through till next summer. I don't think goalkeeper is going to be a priority for this summer at all. Now, right back, I think is a really interesting position for Manchester United this summer. Initially, I would have said that this is a place where they need to go and strengthen. They need to go and bring in a new player. If you have a look at the options that United have got here, they've got Wan-Bissaka, they've got Dalot. Are either of those good enough? I've got a real problem with the way that Wan-Bissaka plays. I think he's so limited in terms of what he offers going forward that actually, are you going to be a top team with Aaron Wan-Bissaka as your right back? I don't think so. I wonder if he fits what Erik Ten Hag is going to want to do at all. I do wonder if maybe even this summer he's going to be moved on and sold. I've not put him in there because I think he's probably worth keeping around the place, especially as a backup. I don't know though if he's going to be a starter. For now, I'm going to put Diogo Dalot in because actually right back's quite an important position for Ten Hag. He kind of uses this slightly elbow system that you see the Manchester City play with Cancelo. You see that Liverpool do it, and you see other teams doing it quite often these days. It's been Nusa Mazraoui doing it for Ten Hag at Ajax for the past couple of seasons, but he's just moved on to Bayern Munich. Otherwise, I'd actually be tipping him to make the move to Manchester United. Right now, though, my tip for right back, and somebody I'm going to go and see if it's possible to bring in, is probably Jurrien Timber. Now, he's actually maybe a centre-back option too. He's only 5'10", so he's not the tallest, but the fact that he can cover right back as well, I think it just makes so much sense. Of course, he's another one of these that has come from or is playing for Ajax and is going to be linked to Manchester United this summer. But I do think there may be legs in this one, and he's somebody I'm going to look at to see, is it possible to bring him in to the club? And I think he could be a really useful signing. At left back, I don't think there's going to be too much going on here. We've got Luke Shaw can play there. Dalot can cover on that side too. We've even got Alex Telles at the club too. I think Luke Shaw will be the first choice at left back, and I don't think we'll see too much movement for next season here. I think Manchester United have priorities in other areas. One of those areas is going to be at centre back. Now, there's a few controversial ideas that I've got about this particular position. I think Rafael Varane is probably going to be a starter next year, and I've got a feeling this might be controversial, that Harry Maguire may well start out next season as Manchester United's left-hand side centre-back. Yes, I know he struggled this year. Manchester United as a club have struggled this year, but Harry Maguire is not a bad footballer. As much as he's tried to show that he is, I actually think there's a player still here with Harry Maguire, and the fact that he's the club captain, new manager coming in, I just think he's going to be starting next year. That may well depend on who is available at centre-back. And I mean, looking at this now, I don't think Manchester United fans are going to be too pleased to see the exact same defence lining up. I do think there are going to be signings there. Of course, there needs to be signings there. Players like Timber, I think, make so much sense coming in because we've got Phil Jones leaving the club. We've got Eric Bailly leaving the club. There's going to need to be players just brought in just in terms of numbers. I think Timber could be one of those. And I think we're going to look at bringing in another centre-back option as well. Who that will be, I'll let you know as we move through. Centre mids now. Now, look, Manchester United will buy a central midfielder this summer. They have to. We've got Matic leaving the club. We've got Pogba leaving the club. There needs to be a new central midfielder being brought in. One of those players being brought in potentially, though, I think could actually be Donny van de Beek returning to the club, playing as this sort of box-to-box, energetic midfielder in there. I can see him actually being used. Of course, he played for Erik Ten Hag at Ajax as well, so he knows him well. He loves him to bits. I think he will be included next year, but yes, they will be bringing in a centre mid too. Now, I've put a deep line playmaker on defend as this role here, and that's not because I think Scott McTominay is going to be playing as a playmaker, although actually Erik Ten Hag does quite like a ball-winning midfielder in this particular role here. Scott McTominay could do that role, and actually I think he will be used next season in this midfield too. However, I put this as a DLP because I have a feeling that some of the links that we are seeing in the press at the moment may well be true, and we may be seeing a big bid being launched for Frenkie de Jong this summer. Barcelona seem to want to sell him. He's Dutch. Erik Ten Hag would love him in his midfield. Would Frenkie de Jong want to come to Manchester United? Potentially, if Erik Ten Hag can sell the project to him. It does seem to be a bit of a step down, but if Barcelona want to sell him, then maybe, just maybe, we could be seeing Frenkie de Jong coming into this role in this midfield. And that's something that I'm going to go and see. Is it possible in FM22 in our rebuild? But that's why I've put this DLP role in this midfield. I just think that there might be something in it. I'm going to group together the next 3 positions because I think they could end up being quite interchangeable depending on who's brought in through the door. And I do suspect that Manchester United will be looking for either a wide player here and then potentially on top of a striker as well. I'm going to go with Bruno Fernandes in behind the striker in this sort of number 10 role. I think that is made for him in the Ten Hag system that he plays. I think we could see a much better season from Bruno Fernandes next year. He kind of struggled last season after being really good with Ollie the season before that. I think we may well see Jadon Sancho playing from the right-hand side. We may see Jadon Sancho playing from the left-hand side as well. We've seen both from him, actually. I'm going to put Sancho in on the right for now. I'm going to put Rashford from the left, and then I'm actually going to put in Cristiano Ronaldo as this sort of false 9. It might end up being a more target man type role, depending if it's Cristiano Ronaldo, depending if they bring in a striker too. But I do suspect that because if you just have a look at the options on the bench here, we are losing Lingard, losing Mata. We'll have Alanga there. Is Alanga good enough to be a regular in this team? I'm not quite so sure. I think they do want to bring in another player in one of these roles. Maybe we could see an Anthony from this right-hand side. Maybe we could see a new striker. Darwin Núñez is very heavily linked right now. This is the type of thing that I'm going to go and explore in the transfer market in FM, and I'm going to go and try and bring in players that I think would be realistic for this Manchester United team. I think it's a very fascinating situation at the moment, but just looking at it, I think we need a centre-back that can probably cover right-back. We're going to need a central midfielder. I would even think about somebody who could play instead of Fernandes in this 10 role, because I'm looking at the backups here. There's not many. I don't want Fred in there particularly. We're losing Lingard and Mata. We're not going to have Pogba. Can Sancho play this role? I'm not quite so sure. Could you play Van der Beek further forward? Maybe. Maybe a number 10. Maybe a striker. And then definitely a player that can play in one of these wide positions too. There's a lot to do. This now is our template. It's informed us about what we need to go and do. I'm going to go into the transfer market now and do some business and let you know what I managed to achieve. I'll see you when the window closes. Okay, then here we go then. Our transfer business has been completed, and I'm going to show you the players I've managed to bring in. I'm going to show you the players I've managed to sell, and I'm going to show you how I think I've managed to rebuild Manchester United in a realistic sort of manner, in a way that I think Erik Ten Hag might actually go about doing it this summer at Manchester United. So let's start with our first new signing, and that is Jurrien Timber has been brought in. I talked about at right back. What I'll do, by the way, is we'll go through the squad and how I think it would set up, and I'll show you how the whole squad as a whole is going to look. But let's just first look at the names. Jurrien Timber, we talked about him at that right back spot, but also being able to cover at centre back. He's not the tallest, but I think actually in that centre back spot with Phil Jones going, with Eric Bailly moving on, I think Jurrien Timber just made sense to sign. He's still young. He's got bags of potential. Of course, he's coming from Ajax, so Erik Ten Hag knows him very well. I think it just ticks too many boxes to ignore. I can really see him joining Manchester United this summer. I actually did that bit of business before it ticked over to the new transfer window, as you can see here, look. And I also, the other bit of business that was done was Nemanja Matic, who went to Wolves on a free transfer in this particular rebuild. Let's move through. In fact, let me just show you who are the players who were released. Let's show you the players who left on those free transfers. As we talked about, Pogba did go. He ended up joining PSG. Maybe you'd expect that to happen in real life. We had Cavani moved on. He went to Brighton. I like that. Juan Mata moved on to Ajax, which I quite like. He's gone like the other way to Erik Ten Hag there, hasn't he? And then Jesse Lingard did go to Ajax as well. I guess because we've signed quite a few of their players, a few of these Manchester United players are signing for Ajax, which is very interesting. There you can see the free transfers though. Let's move through to the transfers that actually went for a bit of money. First of all, should we start with the sales? I think that is a decent place to start here. I did, as I mentioned before, move on Dean Henderson. He went to Cologne for £21 million. Eric Bailly has moved on to £20 million for him. Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Now, I wasn't planning on selling Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but after realizing that I needed a bit more money to get in one or two of the transfers I wanted to bring in, I decided actually Wan-Bissaka, you're going to move on, and I sold him to Rennes, and he went for £17 million. I also did sell Facundo Palestri. I don't think this one's going to happen necessarily if we're going to be completely realistic. I think he's a youngster, but I think actually the money that I had to spend in-game wasn't quite the money that I think Manchester United are going to be able to spend in real life. So Palestri moved on. I actually think that's just one that maybe won't happen in real life. Same with Brandon Williams, actually. I wonder if he'll have another loan. I wonder if they'll use him as a bit of a backup in defence too. He did move on though. Tuanzebe moved on to Cologne. Phil Jones went to Monaco. Pereira I sold to Freiburg. There were some free transfers along here too. Lee Grant went. Tahith Chong went on a free transfer. Anthony Martial, this one's an important one, did go out on loan to West Ham, but they are paying him, I think, £170,000 per week. So it is important to move him off that wage budget too. All of those players moving out meant that I could bring in the following players then. Alongside Jurrien Timber, who we've already seen, I've brought in Darwin Núñez as the striking option. Youri Tielemans has come in this midfield spot. Now, to talk about Tielemans a little bit here, I actually think Frenkie de Jong is going to be that first choice. He was not interested in the slightest on FM, so I had to think outside the box and go for a different player. If he was interested and if it was possible to bring him in on FM, Frenkie de Jong would probably be this player for probably a similar amount of money, maybe a little bit more. Again, I think Manchester United in real life are going to have more money to spend than I had to spend in game here. But Youri Tielemans has come in the midfield. Christian Eriksen, he's available on a free transfer. I've decided to bring him in. I think he may end up going to Spurs or staying at Brentford, but he's a former Ajax player. Is it kind of linked to the Ten Hag thing like that? Will he want to bring him in? I think he might be tempted, you know. He's been sensationally good for Brentford in that second half of the season, doing a lot to keep them in that Premier League. They were really good this year too. I wonder if there's a little Christian Eriksen deal that could be done for Manchester United. I've brought him in on a free. I've given him £130,000 per week. He's 30. Is that a sensible signing? I guess because he's on a free, you can kind of afford it, can't you? He has been brought in, and then two more from Ajax I've decided to bring in too. Edson Alvarez is one of them. He can play as a defensive midfielder. He might end up playing as a defensive midfielder, or he can cover or start at the back too. Of course, he's a former Ajax player, and that Erik Ten Hag knows him very well. I feel like I'm going to repeat myself saying this. In fact, I'm going to repeat myself saying this as I talk about Antony, another player to be brought in, and actually quite cheap comparatively. £28 million. He was the star man for Ajax last season, or one of the star men for Ajax last season. I can see him being brought in for Manchester United just because they need one of those attacking players. I brought a striker in Núñez. They haven't got other players who can play wide. They had Sancho, they had Rashford. That was about it. Alanga. I thought actually this is a place they do need to strengthen. Antony fits that bill. I wonder if they'll go and make that move. I've decided to bring him in here. Let's have a look at how the team will set up with these players in then. Starting at the back, we'll have De Gea in goal. Right back, I've now sold Wan-Bissaka. I wonder if Dalot might be a starter. I'm not quite sure. I do just think maybe they do need some type of change at the back here. I've gone Timber at right back, being kind of tucking in as a centre-back when they attack. Maybe getting forward a little bit less. He's more of a centre-back, I'd probably say. Varane starting. I've put Maguire in. I think that's going to be unpopular with a lot of Manchester United supporters. Maybe other supporters too may think he's going to be dropped. I have a feeling he's going to start. But if he does continue the poor form that he's had this year, then you've got Alvarez to drop in and take over. Lindelof is still at the club. So I think with these signings being brought in, I think it's realistic in that there are other options if Harry Maguire doesn't find form. Shaw will be the left back, but they still do have, Brandon Williams did come back briefly. I did sell him on. He could be an option to come in. Dalot can play left back. They've also got Telles. Then in the midfield, we've got this Tielemans role, which actually, if you wanted to go to something a little bit more like what Ajax use, you could actually play Alvarez in the role that he's been playing in for Ajax this season. Not Tielemans at centre back. You bring Maguire in. You could do something like this, but I think a Frankie de Jong or a Tielemans in this role in midfield could be something we see next season. Van der Beek, I think, will play football for Manchester United next season. You could see Fernandes playing a bit deeper in one of these roles, maybe as the deep line playmaker. You could see Eriksen come in, as we talked about, bringing him into this attacking midfield spot. I think there are options there now for Manchester United, especially when you talk about the likes of Antony coming in on these in these wide positions, playing as a winger, usually inverted for Erik Ten Hag, but actually maybe they go a little bit regular in their approach and Sancho plays as an out-and-out winger. They've got options, which I think is what you need as a new manager with a squad that's had such an overhaul. You're going to need to find where players fit and where they come in. I think Antony made sense in that regard. And then up front, you've got two fantastic options. You've got Cristiano Ronaldo and then Darwin Núñez eventually taking over from him. Maybe you even see Ronaldo playing one of these wide positions. I don't know if he's got the legs anymore, but maybe it depends. Do you want him to be more of a focal point, playing as this target forward, playing more as like a false nine? Then you play Ronaldo. Do you want a more pressing striker for different matches? A couple of other things to mention too, I suppose. James Garner, I think you're going to see him around the squad next season if he impresses during pre-season. If Erik Ten Hag doesn't quite feel like he's going to be there, maybe he'll have another loan. But having a look, I think this provides a lot of options. Hannibal will maybe get one or two more games. You've got Fred still in there, who I think actually could well be quite important. Maybe playing as this box-to-box here. Maybe him dropping completely out is a little bit unfair. But I think this squad is actually a very realistic rebuild, but it has been rebuilt. I think this squad can go and maybe challenge for those top four positions if Erik Ten Hag can get those players playing in the manner that he wants them to be playing. That still seems like a very difficult task for me, but I think with signings like this is the start of Manchester United being rebuilt. I would go and play a season with these guys and show you how they get on, but this is Football Manager, and I think we'd all expect them to go and win the league with this type of team. So I'm not going to go and do that. If you want to go and see me play a few seasons, then let me know in the comments down below. But I think from this point, this is where we will end our realistic rebuild. This is what I expect to happen in the summer at Manchester United. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked this sort of more realistic, real-life football type of thing where I go and do lots of research, then let me know by leaving a like on the video or leave me a comment down below. And if you have enjoyed it, make sure you do subscribe to the channel for future videos. Maybe with the summer transfer window coming around, we could go and do a realistic rebuild with a few different teams, thinking about who they might sign in the summer. Let me know if that's something you want to see in those comments. But most importantly, have a lovely rest of your day. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.